a really, really big one I want people to hold on to during the holidays is look for the positive moments. It can be really easy to fall into our own anxiety, the panic, anticipation of the meltdowns, the negativity, and seeing all the not so good bits that's happening for a kiddo. So where you can, look for those positive times. Notice out loud when your child is playing really kindly with somebody, being generous when they are sharing.
Welcome to the Soaring Child podcast, where parents of children with ADHD learn tips and tricks to help their child soar at home, at school, and in life. We feature interviews with experts, medical professionals, and parents just like you who are learning how to reduce ADHD symptoms using food and other natural strategies. Because children with ADHD deserve to soar just like every other child. I'm Dana Kay, your host. Hello, parents. This is Dana Kay here with another edition of the Soaring Child podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that every parent of a child with ADHD faces: the holiday season. Let me just paint a little bit of a picture for you. It's the holidays. Everyone's gathered around the table. Your child is eyeing foods that you know may trigger a meltdown. Your relatives are giving you some sort of unsolicited advice. Definitely happened a lot to me. And all you're trying to do is just keep that peace and that calm while making sure your child doesn't sort of spiral into overwhelm from all the challenges and excitement. If you're nodding along right now thinking, yep, that's me, that's my holidays, I can tell you you're not alone. I remember one holiday when Oliver had a complete meltdown after eating something that was off limits, and no one really understood why. It felt like we were just under this microscope, and all I wanted was for someone to just, get it, okay? The holidays can be magical, but for families like ours, they definitely come with unique challenges. And that's why today's episode is going to be so important. And I'm joined today by someone who can really, truly help us navigate these challenges, Ashley Gobeil. She is a frequent guest on this podcast because she gets it. She helps countless families like yours and mine, navigate the complexities of raising a child with ADHD. So for those of you that are new to the podcast, I'm going to introduce you to Ashley. For those of you who have been listening for a long time, you would know her well, but she is a highly experienced therapist with over 15 years in the field, and she holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's in social health and counseling, and a master's of social work. But beyond the credentials, she's worked in a wide range of settings: childcare, schools, child and adolescent mental health, and her expertise includes supporting children and families and parents with ADHD, ODD, and learning difficulties. And she's definitely a trusted voice on issues like family dynamics, attachment theory, trauma, and so much more. So today we're going to talk about how to best prepare your child with ADHD for changes in the routine that the holiday season brings, how to handle that judgment from those well-meaning relatives without letting it really affect your confidence or your emotional state, and how to prevent and manage those meltdowns when, that excitement, that overstimulation of the holidays really starts to take a toll. Ashley, hello. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, thank you. What a great intro. And yeah, it's a big topic.
It is a super big topic. It is. And definitely one that I think many families have got on their mind right now. The holiday season, it sort of brings this change in routines. We've got families that do traveling, staying with other family, or even just having less structured days. So how can we best prepare our children with ADHD for these sort of transitions to really reduce that anxiety and reduce that frustration?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start with some of the practical bits.
Yep.
I wonder
we love practical here on the podcast.
And because like I said, there's changes in routine, there's less structure. And there's lots of transitions that can happen during the holiday season that kids aren't used to. And we know kiddos who struggle with ADHD-based behaviors, those transition points can be a hot spot. So I would suggest things like creating like a visual board to to show the days. Like if you think about how long are the holidays there, I feel like in America it starts from like Thanksgiving, right? And it goes like for like weeks and weeks, well into New Year's. So it's like off and on holidays, still school, then school break. So there's kind of like a lot that can happen in that couple months.
Yeah.
Have I got that right? Yeah. So, I would suggest having whether that be a calendar or a whiteboard, and depending on the age of your child, having visual things that show, okay, this is the day, this is the things that are happening today. And so there's something that they can see. Really color coordinated can be really nice to help kids be really clear, but also really verbalizing. And I think, if you've got younger kids, the visual stuff can work, can be there, but kids really need to be told, like kids with ADHD, verbally what they can expect each day. Mm-hmm. So whether that you prepare them the night before in the morning and it's like that, this is what's going to happen today. And I would even break it down of, today we're going to Uncle so-and-so's and we're having dinner, but we're going to start by, first you need to brush teeth and we need to do this. And then we're getting in the car and it's going to be a little bit of a long drive. So, you might bring an activity with you, kind of doing that preparation.
Yeah. But you know what? Like I know that I never did. And it's just such a simple, basic thing, but just provides so much, I suppose, more comfort for the child knowing what is coming next.
Yeah. And really breaking it down. And depending on how much that your child experiences some anxiety, letting them know who else is going to be there when they arrive, or if somebody's coming to their house, who's coming? What does that mean? That just had me thinking about, when they're coming to your house and you've got that child who really struggles to share or gets possessions over their toys, like having that conversation about which things need to be put away because it's going to be really hard to share. And then what are the things that you're willing to play with your cousins with or your other kids, so having some of those, pre-visit conversations around what to expect, where can they have some autonomy and choice can help as well. Like what toy do they want to bring with them? I think as well, if you're going somewhere, is there, a body or a sensory or a mindfulness-based activity that can support the transition, And I know we've talked about this before, Donna, like rituals and things that are meaningful. Can they do something before they get in the car for 10, I'm talking even 5-10 minutes, to do that activity. If you have a kiddo who easily moves into fight mode, do some of those proprioception sensory activities, which is the deep muscle, pushing, pulling, lifting, squeezing. If they're kind of daydreamy and they're that kid who's kind of forgetful and a bit all, lost in clouds in the morning, those activities that are like spinning or getting them to go upside down or having a swing or a jump on the trampoline, if that's possible where you live in the season. And I know we've got a sensory activity guide that can really help as well. So you can go, okay, what sort of behaviors does my kid move into? What might be a soothing sensory activity to do before and after those transitions?
Well, that is like a bit of gold right there and such a simple thing. I'm glad you raised that sensory guide. We will definitely put a link to that free sensory guide in the show notes below. So definitely listeners, check that one out. It is pure gold and will definitely help those transitions and, preparing the child for what's got to go on. I think I love everything that you just said, and that's really going to help break it down and reduce some of that anxiety, some of that frustration for the child. Now, parents also face judgment from all they're well-meaning relatives. Like, don't get me wrong, they mean well. It's not out of being mean or anything like that, but we face this judgment. I think especially it's heightened during the holidays, whether it's about dietary choices or how we manage our children's behavior. how can we handle these, these comments or these criticisms with sort of a little bit more confidence and without sort of letting it affect our emotional state as well?
This is the big one. I think it comes up every year in our programs with parents. Where to start? And I think, as you said, emotions can be heightened during the holidays because there can be lots of excitement, anticipation. But, for some people, moving in and out of relationship with family and extended family members can come with some intensity. So I think just part of that first is just acknowledging or noticing that, going, okay, how do I actually feel as the adult going on, this visit, or what are the feelings that I'm having? I think we've talked about this before, but where are things that actually maybe you've committed to that you maybe can let go of sometimes too? But if it's something you've got to go to, how to handle those comments. I'm thinking of a couple of examples. Because I know a lot of parents go, it's so hard because you can get really full of shame. You can feel that judgment. It can make you feel like, oh my gosh, all eyes are on me. My kid's having this meltdown. And there can be this pressure to want to punish or want to do things that that aren't working, but you get that kind of perceived judgment of like, you're not doing enough. I don't know if you heard that, Donna, in the past. The parents like, you're not doing enough. You're not controlling them enough. They need to learn.
You're bad.
All this noise. And again, I think that first step is in the moment when you're hearing those comments or someone says something, really tuning into, okay, how am I feeling about this? Validate that. You maybe keep it internally, but it's so, so important to communicate and set really clear boundaries with friends and family members about what feels okay to discuss, especially in front of the child when those comments are made, and be really clear about how, what's an okay topic to talk about or not. So it might look something like, saying to a family member, I think maybe we see that a bit differently. I know my little one's having a really hard time. And actually, I think sometimes the more we understand ADHD-based behaviors, the easier it is to advocate for our children and to explain to people. So it'll be like, his nervous system's really overloaded. Sometimes sensory experiences are hard for him. We've had a really big day. He's feeling exhausted. And so it's not so much giving excuses, but it's kind of out loudly giving a bit of an explanation around why your child might be struggling in that moment. It can be really hard for him to share. And doing that with empathy, I don't know if that makes sense, but you can do it in front of the child. So it actually shows that you're tuning in. Your child has that experience of, oh, my mom or dad or my caregiver's getting this as well. It's like, we're having a really tough time. We need to take some space. I don't know if it's possible as well for some people to set those clear boundaries prior to visits with family members around, hey, there's going to be different food dietary requirements. I know that sometimes it's hard to understand. I just really need people to be okay with it,
One thing I love about you, Ashley, is you always give what that looks like in practice, and you just did that right there and then. And so, even listeners, if you're just tuning in, you're like, oh my gosh, I totally need to remember to say that. Like, stop this episode, rewind it, write down what Ashley said, and put it in your pocket. When those things come up in the holiday season. But I totally agree with you there, Ashley. Is like the more you can prepare or preempt something before it actually happens, the better, because, set those expectations up front, speak to the people that are hosting the party, speak to your child beforehand. That's definitely going to set the scene and set the expectations from both sides. And I love how you sort of explain that in what you should verbalize when a situation like that happens, because for those that know you and have listened to many of your episodes with me, they will realize that actually sounds very similar on how we should talk to a child when they are having a meltdown. So if we actually just put into practice what you've taught us in how we should respond to those big emotions, we're really responding to that adults' big emotions in their
Absolutely. Because if you think about it, that adult's usually only making a comment because they're actually activated by your child. It often has little to do with us. Sure, they may be passing judgment, but it actually is more about what they're finding uncomfortable, their own stuff. And that can help too, is around how do I take this not personally and really anchor yourself in, I know I'm parenting in the way that my child needs. And I actually don't have to justify that to anyone.
That everyone needs to write on a piece of paper. Everyone needs to put that on a mirror, because you don't need to justify that to anyone. And when you can own that, when you can believe that and hold that inside you, then when those situations happen, you will be so confident that anything that comes out of your mouth, anything that happens with your child, absolutely love that. So what can parents do, in the moment? Okay, they see they're in a holiday party. They can see a meltdown coming. How can they sort of de-escalate that situation, before it sort of spirals?
Yeah, I think, the first bit would be, because there's other people around, there can be that more pressure, that people are seeing how you're parenting. I think initially, if you can resist any temptations, which links to the last question, having that confidence, resist any temptation to up the ante on consequences, or to, because often those adults making comments, and it's a strong invitation to, be really harsh. And, you get that pull of like, oh, I've got to show these other adults that I'm not letting my kid get away with this behavior, right? So it's like, if you first got that confidence, you'll be less likely to move into those old patterns. And in the moment, when you can start to see things maybe going a little bit tricky, is connection. Connect to your kiddo way before correction where you can. And I mean, it's the same, the same kind of strategies that I often share around holding some empathy. So noticing, like going to your kiddo, getting down on level, like, hey, I'm noticing that you might be having a bit of a tricky time. I'm noticing that, you're finding it hard to share right now, or whatever the situation is, saying it out loud, like acknowledging that you're seeing that they're starting to have a bit of a hard time, and making a suggestion around what you could do to help them. Do you take them outside for a couple of minutes? Do you move to another room for a couple of minutes? Do you kind of sit and offer to sit with them and read a book for a minute? Or, you'll know your kids best around what might help. But I think that move in as quick as you can, and move into the connection. Set a boundary and limit where you need to. It's like, hey, I'm not going to let you hit your cousin. I know you're having a hard time. Okay, let's go and do something to help you with this big feeling. There was an actual example in one of the coaching calls we had the other day around, there was a mum and she was looking after lots of kids because there was a snow day or something like that. So she'd offered to look after the kids on the day. And, she said that her little one was starting to have a really hard time, and it became a lot. And there was a lot of corrections that she was throwing his way, and that his peers were throwing his way. It was like, hey, you can't do that. You got to do this way. You got to share your toys. You got to do this. And, a few hours went by and he finally just exploded. And she goes, and then, she kind of went in because she felt like the kids were even going, what are you going to do about this behavior? So even the kids were looking to her to punish, right? And she said, in hindsight now, I can see where things were actually escalating, is that he was getting so many corrections all day long. And then, a couple hours later, he just couldn't handle feeling like
you can understand
anymore.
Can totally understand.
Yeah. So, she goes, oh, actually, in hindsight, I could have right at the beginning in the first couple corrections actually went and connected to him and going, hey, I think you're having a really hard time with so many relationships, and what can you go and do to look after yourself? And when you're at a visit in the holidays, there may be a lot of adults who are correcting your kid, right? So just noticing some of those patterns, and also getting to know what might trigger your kids, and kind of preempting for that, and in the moment, if you've got another adult who can help, sometimes distraction is a good option too.
Right? What does that look like? So what would you go in with that connection, and then
connect and then like a redirect, right? So it's like connect. Okay, what if you went and did this? Hey, remember how you brought your Lego? Because we negotiated that in the car. Let's go take out that toy that you brought so you can sit and do that. Or actually, let's go shift to go kick a ball outside. Or, I don't love using screen times as a distraction because we want to get them off that. That would be like the last resort. But is there something that you can suggest going, hey, why don't you come and do this instead?
And I'm wondering, you said you actually said, oh, like what you negotiated before you came, that might be a good opportunity prior to actually arriving, or when you actually get there, to say that, if either of us are having a hard time and there's too much sensory overload, what do you think we should do in that scenario? Do you think we should try and find, a place where we can just take some time out, or should we find an activity to do in preparation for that? So definitely, again, taking it back to what we can do to prepare,
planning.
And planning and prior. And it is all about planning, isn't it? It's all about that planning and of those expectations. Or proactive strategies. Why don't you share, like you've shared with us some strategies for prior. Do you have any other sort of little bits of goodness that you can share with listeners to make that holiday season a little easier?
Yeah, I think you're thinking that it's going to go on for weeks and there's going to be that chopping and changing of structure. So I would look at where can you as a family build in time and space for unwinding. So you're going to go, okay, there's going to be a lot of sensory overload. And think about, we've talked about this, people that know me. We know that kids who have that ADHD tendencies, they often spend a lot of time in hyperarousal states, right? So they're in that heightened, they can easily move into fight and flight. And even when they're excited, excitement is still a hyperarousal state. Yeah. And the ADHD system sometimes can't really differentiate, what's excitement and what's anxiety. It just sometimes goes, I don't know if you've ever seen, for those listening, your kiddo who's really, really excited and then all of a sudden they burst and there's a meltdown. Because it's just like been that overload. So when you can start to go, where can we find space to really find opportunities to soothe my kid's nervous system in between visits? When you've got nothing planned on a day, creating environments where there's low sensory stimulation, like turning down the, putting on essential oils in the house, having some soft music that's calming, like dimming the lights, or having the, I think we've talked about this before, having the red light on after a certain time. Like, how do you soothe, having those soothing environments for your child to come in and out of, creating maybe even like a cozy corner in your house during the holidays, that can be their little taking space area with their sensory toys. And, being really mindful that it can be tough for kids who are struggling with ADHD and who have a sensitive nervous system to manage multiple relationships at once. So give them an out where they can. I know that's part of that planning, but having that conversation, if they start to notice they're becoming overwhelmed, or you start to notice, what's their get out of, out plan? Where can they go and take space at someone's house? Noticing those early warning signs of like overtired. Where can they make sure your kiddos are still getting sleep?
That's a big one.
Huge, right? Like, where can we nourish their sleep? Yes, I would still try to keep to like a flexible routine. It's not going to be super structured, but, having those rhythms as a family, making sure they're still getting those nutritious meals, are they still getting enough sleep? Where can we have downtime when there's busyness happening? So it's like that. It's like, we got a day of a lot of busyness. Can the next day be a more drop-in and grounding kind of day? Limiting screen times where we can. That's going to overstimulate, and encourage that outdoor time where you can, even in the cold. Like, can you plan? I would plan like really low-key activities for your kids when they're at home. Go on a nature walk. Find time to play and connect with them, even for 20 minutes one-on-one. Give them that real connection time. Fill up that love cup, because if they've got more fuel in the tank, they're going to have more resource to cope with those trickier, busier, more stimulating days. Yeah.
If they've got more fuel in the tank, they're going to have more
Capacity.
Capacity.
Yeah, more capacity and resource to manage those trickier times, and like a really, really big one I want people to hold on to during the holidays is look for the positive moments.
Yeah.
It can be really easy to fall into the our own anxiety, the panic, anticipation of the meltdowns, the negativity, and seeing all the not so good bits that's happening for a kiddo. So where you can, look for those positive times. Notice out loud when your child is playing really kindly with somebody, being generous when they are sharing. And it's oh, I'm noticing that you're being really creative right now with your friend, or, oh, I'm noticing such a calm body. Bringing that awareness to those positive moments actually really helps them anchor in that nervous system experience of regulation. And make space for fun, for family time. Bring in playfulness, lightness, pick your battles where you can as well, I think. And yeah, where can you find those really positive, joyful times to just and embrace them and go, wow, I'm really enjoying my time with you guys. Even if it's a small amount of time.
Oh, look, this episode has been full of gold, Ashley. Let's summarize. Okay. Over to you. Let's just summarize those top key tips that you gave listeners today, because there was quite a few little nuggets in there.
Yeah. Okay. Summarize. Now you're going to test me. So starting with preparation. So it's if we break it into 3 pillars, we got preparation in the moment, and then that overall kind of, okay, what can you do to reduce stimulation? Preparation, everything from those practical visual boards, really explaining to your child what to expect, negotiating contingency plans for possible big feelings. Yeah, all of that, prepping our relatives, setting boundaries for both your kid and the adults. Finding your confidence where you can, and in the moment, if you can stay as regulated as possible to go, okay, yeah, we're having a tricky time. It doesn't mean the whole day or holiday's ruined, So in the moment, empathize, connection before correction. And then, what are all the things that you can do to soothe that kiddo's nervous system throughout those kind of, is it 6 to 8 weeks? Where can we find the time to go, okay, soothe? So your outdoor time, your flexible rhythms. What else did I say? Lots of
connection, fill up that love cup.
The love cup, yes, and noticing positives.
Yeah.
And you know what I would add, but lastly, to all the parents, take moments, even micro moments, to look after yourself.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. Look after yourself as well.
Because the more you have in your tank, the more you can be a resource to your kiddos when they're coming undone.
Well, that is a perfect moment to finish up, Ashley. Thank you once again for just being here and joining us today. I just love the conversations that we have when you join us, and appreciate you so much.
Thank you. It was great to be here. And I look forward to hearing what people say, what's helped her in this. Yeah.
Definitely.
And
look, we'll drop
everyone.
I know. Happy holidays to everyone. We'll definitely drop the link to that free guide that you mentioned earlier. Listeners, definitely check that out in the show notes. Thank you, Ashley, once again for joining me. Always incredibly helpful. And I definitely feel like listeners will feel much more equipped to face the holiday season with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more calm. To everyone listening, remember that the holidays, they don't have to be overwhelming. Just with a bit of planning, a bit of preparation, a bit of compassion and empathy, both for your child and definitely for yourself as well, can really just create a beautiful experience, a beautiful holiday season for your family. If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with other parents who might be facing similar challenges. You're definitely not alone in this journey. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Soaring Child. I'm Dana Kay, your ADHD health practitioner. Keep on thriving. Thank you for listening to the Soaring Child podcast today. To learn more about how to help your child with ADHD soar using natural strategies, visit our website at adhdthriveinstitute.com and follow us on social media at ADHD Thrive Institute.